Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. This is going to be something new that I wanted to do for a long time. I've been thinking about this idea for a long time, and I'm finally doing it. And what the idea is that I want to do a top 10 list. But everybody does like the more modern stuff. I kind of want to focus on two top 10 lists, one for the Golden Age and one for the Silver Age. Now, I'm not going to do these every week, but I'm going to do it once a month because really the trends are a little bit slower with the Golden and the Silver Age. So today's video, I'm going to be focusing on the top 10 Silver Age comics from July. And really, it took that whole month to see what those trends were. So I'm going to do these videos sort of within the first week of the new month. So I'm filming this in August, but it's really looking at the previous month. And the reason I do that is instead of like, having it where it's like the hot now thing, you can't really get that sense with the Golden and Silver Age. You can only see sort of the trend moving. And it's not like you get the huge volumes of books that you get from the modern age. So this is something that I think will be interesting because it's something that's different from any other channel. They're all focusing on the modern age and Bronze Age or Copper. And this is really just focusing solely on the Silver Age and Golden Age in the second video. So today I'll post the Silver Age top 10 list, top 10 hottest Silver Age books for the month past, and I will also post the top 10 Golden Age books. And that is actually going to be a very interesting list because it is a slow moving list and it's kind of interesting to see what's happening within that list. And it's really based, a lot of these top 10s that I'm going to be showing you, I'm going to be getting the data from GoCollect. So I really do recommend you check out GoCollect. And these lists are really based on sales activity. And it could be one or two big sales that just drive the market. So with all that said, let's get into the top 10 list. So I'm going to switch over. Now the first on the list is Silver Surfer number 3. And you probably already know why this is on the list. It is, a great first appearance of Mephisto. And this book has been hot for a while. It was hot during WandaVision. This is number 10 on the list. And it's one of those books that people have been specking on for forever. And it seems like whenever there's a new show that comes out, there's almost like a meme where people will say, oh, is Mephisto going to be in it? It's like WandaVision was probably the closest within that spec. So they show it here. First appearance of Mephisto. You can buy a 9.8 for $54,000. There was a recent sale of a 9.6 in February for $16,000. Now these higher grade ones are really hard to get because that red background that's on this cover is just really, really hard to get without flaws. It's really hard to get that 9.8. And if you look at the census, there's only 8 on the census that are a 9.8. So just really rare book. Now you can sort of pick up an entry-level copy of this book for around $300 to $400 range. So if you look at the 1.5 is sort of like the almost bare comic. It's barely like a comic at that point. And then a 3.0 goes for about $400. What I would actually recommend that this 3.0 would be a really good one to pick up because you can see that it has room to grow because a 2.5 sold for the same price. So if you're in the market for Silver Surfer number 3, this is maybe the best time to get that 3.0. Okay, so I'm trying to give a little bit of advice. I'm not saying whether or not you should be buying this comic as a spec or anything, because I believe that it has been spec'd on a lot already, but take my advice with a grain of salt. I'm not telling people to rush out and buy all these comics. I actually bought this, I have every single one of these books on the top 10 this month, so I'm quite happy, but buy responsibly, I guess, is the best thing think about. So number 9 on the list is Tales of Suspense number 52. Now, everybody should be knowing this book right now because this is super hot because the movie just came out for Black Widow, and this is her first appearance. And this is what Black Widow looked like in the Silver Age. She was more of a femme fatale kind of girl. And this book is super hot for the fact that the movie just came out. So expect this book to cool down in the next few weeks as the movie, it's been watched pretty much by everyone. It's got sort of mixed reviews. People are sort of okay with it. So let's read the thing here. So it's first appearance of the Black Widow, of Anton, and death of Borgias. So a bunch of people get introduced and then get killed off. There are no 9.8s on the census for this book. So getting a high grade of this Silver Age book, very, very hard. So you can see that a 9.6 is kind of like the 9.8 in terms of the way it's being priced. It's about 4 to 5 times the market value of a 9.4. And that's just because there is no 9.8 to fill that gap. So if there's ever a 9.8 that appears, it would be at that $500,000 range. So we got 9.6 at around $105,000. And that is the last sale for that book. So you can expect this one to be even higher. Was from 2018. So quite a ways ago. But there was a sale in June of an 8.5 for $4,300. So, you can see that this is a fairly strong book. And if we look at the lower grades, you can sort of get in on this book for that $450 to $600 range is sort of where you're looking at to get in as an entry-level book on this one. There's a lot of books on the census for this one. This has 1,583 books on the census. And most of them are blue labels. So, there's a lot of books out there for this one. And it is one that has room still to grow, but I think it would be cooling off in the next little bit because of the fact that the movie is now over and the Black Widow character has kind of died. So, it's one of those characters where it's sort of done. So there's might not be as much room for this to go up huge amounts that we saw in the past. But it's still a great book to have, and I'm happy that I have it in my collection. So that's number 9 on the list, Tales of Suspense number 52, first appearance of the Black Widow. Now the next one on the list is Submariner number 1. Now, this is not the first appearance of the Submariner. It's not even the first Silver Age appearance of the Submariner. But it is his first title book, where it's his solo title. They actually had a one-shot where it was Iron Man Submariner, which was before this. But this book has been sort of heating up because of the rumors around Submariner being in the MCU. And we can take a look at how this book has been performing, and there was actually a 9.8 sale for $12,000 in June. So that's a pretty recent sale, and that will kind of filter down to the rest of the market. You can usually expect 3 to 4 times a value between a 9.6 and a 9.8. But the 9.6 had just recently sold as well from May 2021. So don't expect too much growth there. But this book still has room to grow because once we get a trailer or something with the Submariner, this book will definitely go up some more. And I still believe it's very undervalued for what it is. It is Submariner's first solo series in the Silver Age. He did have a Golden Age series as well. So, but this is his first Silver Age. I always like looking at the entry-level books because where can you get in on this book? Well, for about $100 in that 80 to so it's cheaper than that Tales of Suspense 52 because you can get on this one for about 80 to even 350. You can get a 4.0, which is a pretty high grade. Even a 5.0. So actually you can see that there hasn't been really much sales. So a 5.5, if you can get, that's fair market value at a 5.5 at 350, that book should go up a bit because it will correct based on the fact that there's been sales of things that are lower grades for about the same amount. So there might be some room to, if I could pick up a 5.5, this would be the one to pick, to get, because it's a little bit undervalued based on the other other books that are below it in grade. So this one has 3,925 on the census. It's a much more common book than some of the others on this list. So definitely a much easier book to find. A little bit, the prices kind of reflect that, and it's not as major of a key. It is a key in the respect that it is Submariner's first solo series, but it isn't a key in terms of first appearances. So take that all with a grain of salt. So Submariner #1, number 8 on the list. And next on the list is Daredevil #1. Now this is a great book that for the longest time was undervalued. If you had bought it last year, you probably could have gotten a really good deal on it, and that's when I bought it. So I was quite happy with my my 2.0. I have a 2.0 of this book. And Daredevil #1 is the first appearance of the Daredevil, Matt Murdock. And it's also his origin, and it's the first appearance of Karen Page and Foggy Nelson. And those are all major characters within the Daredevil franchise. So again, this book has only 2 9/8s on the that have ever been graded, and you can expect those to go for around $260,000. So if you look at it, it's actually cheaper than the Tales of Suspense 52. So to me, this is a bigger key than the first appearance of the Black Widow. So it's kind of interesting to see that it's actually a more affordable book in that high grade. And it's really, has to pick up. You'll notice that the entry-level books for this book, where it's like that 1.0 or to 3.0 range, those are kind of entry-level books, are pretty pricey. So this is so far the most expensive on the list. An entry book is going to cost you over $1,000. It's going to be about $1,500 to $3,000 in price. So pretty expensive book. Even though this is more common, it's just more sought after. So we got sales from July that show that it's a strong book in terms of the sales. July it was selling for a 3.0 was selling for about 2,700, and there's 5,000 on the census. So just to give you a sense of the fact that this is not as scarce, but it is a much more in-demand book. And maybe this is one of those ones where the high end, the high grades are the ones to be looking at because they're just much more rare than some of these more lower grades. Especially the mid grades are pretty common. So that's number 7 on the list, which is Daredevil #1 from I believe it's 1964. So Silver Age goodness. Okay, next on the list is Fantastic Four #52. And this is another great first appearance comic with the first appearance of the Black Panther. And what makes this a really great book is the fact that Black Panther is centered and featured on the cover. And it's just a great book. Still, in my opinion, undervalued for what it is. So we got the first appearance of the Black Panther, first appearance of the Negative Zone, and this is Fantastic Four number 52. And you can see this is a much more affordable book than the Daredevil number 1. And I would say like Black Panther, in terms of, you know, where the Black Panther franchise has been, it has actually done very, very, very well. It's actually rated as the number 5 top grossing movies from the whole Marvel franchise. It way outperformed Daredevil's movie, and they're making a sequel. So there's going to be a new Black Panther movie, which has that potential to even further excite people around this book. So with all that said, let's look at the prices. So a 9.8 will cost you about $92,000. Pretty pricey book, but you can see that there's actually, what I always look to is that 9.8 should be about 3 to 4 times a 9.6, usually in that range. And if you notice that 9.8 is really only about double. So you could expect that 9.8 to actually go up in value, just because there hasn't been any recent sales, and it's one of those ones that might be a little bit under what it should be. So once those sales come in, I think there'll be a pretty big sale where you'll see this go up to maybe, I would guess, around 150 to 200,000 range. So this is, if you can pick up a 9.8 for fair market value right now, would be the best time to do it. So then we look at the 9.6. It's got a sale in April for 52,000. And let's look at those entry-level books, because that's what we can afford, maybe. So an entry-level book, you can get a 1.0 for around 325, which is, you know, and that's based on sales from last year. And up to 4.0 would be just under that 1,000 mark. And so in July it sold, there was a sale for 975, so you just get it right under that 1,000 mark. So that's kind of the price ranges you're looking at. And again, this is a fairly common book. There's about 5,000, there's 5,040 on the census. But most of them, like a lot of them are actually signed copies. So there's a lot of signed copies of this, like 10% of them are signed. So that's a very interesting thing to see, that there's a huge number of gold labels for this one. Probably people got it signed. Looking at this comic, you know, it could be the case that a lot of people got this signed by Chadwick Boseman, which would be good and bad, because then you're tying that book to that one actor. And of course, there's going to be a movie in the future where Chadwick Boseman, who can't do it anymore, he's no longer, there's going to be new actors that are going to play it. And you don't want to necessarily have your comic pinned to one actor, even though he was kind of the one that was the quintessential Black Panther. So with that said, let's look at some of the prices of these lower grades. You can see that the 3.5, I always like looking for these double numbers where the 3.5 and the 3.0 kind of go for the same amount. That means that there's some room for this 3.5 to go up a little bit more. Now this sale is more recent than the 3.0, but I would say that it's not that it's going down. I think that it's just somebody got a good deal on it. And I think there's some room for this to go up even further. So that's Fantastic Four, number 52, which is number 6 on our list of the top 10 Silver Age. Now let's get into that top 5. So number 5 on our list is Fantastic Four, number 67. And you're probably wondering, why is this ugly book on the cover? Well, this is the Cocoon. And this Cocoon was at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy number 2. And it's where they were creating him. Him becomes Adam Warlock. And there's a lot of spec that Adam Warlock is going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy number 3. And this is the Cocoon that really creates him. This is not the first appearance of him completely. It is just the Cocoon. We gotta, so let's look at this book. So it's they say it's the brief, it's sort of the cameo of him. So brief first appearance of him, who becomes Adam Warlock later. And let's look at the value. So this one's much more affordable than some of the other ones we just showed. 9.8 will cost you 18,000, and that's kind of in that range that I would expect. Maybe a little more affordable, but the last sale was in May of 2018, and we got the even the 9.6 hadn't had a recent sale. There wasn't a recent sale within the last year, so we got that at 7,000. And you can see that this is a much more common one in high grade than some of the other ones on the list. There's 12 in the 9.8, 38 in that 9.6 range. So, some of them didn't even have 9.8. So this is the first with kind of a bit more volume on that top 10, that top graded grades of 9.8. And what do we have next? So we look at a 3.0. And we look at the 1.0. So very, very basic entry level, like barely a comic. Well, you can get that for about $60. So for under $100, you can get in on this book. And even up to a 2.0, 2.5, you can get probably for that $100 range. So I would recommend buying that 5.5 range or 6.0 range, which is around $325 to $350. You can see that there's room for those ones to go up. 6.5 went for $450, so you can really see that there's room for these other ones to kind of go up a bit more. So with that all being said, this is Fantastic Four number 67, first brief appearance or cameo of him. And it's also the cover with the Cocoon on it. So this is sort of considered the second part of the origin of him. Okay, so next on the list in number 4 spot is Fantastic Four number 48. And this one has a bunch of great things about it. It is obviously the first cameo appearance of Galactus, and it's also the first full appearance of the Silver Surfer. So two great characters that we all know, and what we see is this is a lot of people have been specking on this book for a long time, and it's a very solid book. You'll notice that this one has a lot more on the census. So there's like 45 9.8s on the census. So it's a book that is very well established. When we do the Golden Age stuff, you'll see much lower numbers. So this will be interesting in comparison. So 9.8 goes for around 100,000, and you can expect that just because of the fact that there are so many of these on the census compared to other Silver Age keys. And this book is from 1966. It is a major key, and it definitely has room to grow, especially if there's any announcement that Silver Surfer, this is really a Silver Surfer spec, if he's announced to be in the next Fantastic Four movie or any of the other movies that are coming out in the MCU, well, this book will definitely go up some more, because right now it's really the Galactus spec that people are, that the value is being based on, I think. So we look at entry-level book for this, and you're looking at a 1.0 maybe being around $800 to 3.0, which is around $2,000. So it's pretty pricey entry-level book, and those are recent sales. So we know that those sales are pretty pretty determined, and this is a book that has a lot of volume on it. There's a lot of sales happening on this book. So it's not one that you can that you have to worry about, where it's like, oh, you only see it once and you'll never see it again. There's a lot of volume here, and you can probably play a little bit of wait and see on this one, where you can sort of say, hey, look, I'm not super happy with that price. I'm gonna wait for a better price. one of the things that I noticed for this book is the 5055 run are really in a good position to possibly go up. Like there's a big jump between the 60 and the 55. That really suggests to me that there is room for that 55 to go up. So if you can afford $3,200 on this book, then that might be the one to look for. The other thing that you should look at is the number of books on the census, and it's around 7,000 on the census. So it is a much more common book. It's so far the most common of these books that we've looked at. So just be aware of that. But it is a great book. I have a copy of this in my collection. I'm quite happy with mine. I didn't pay nearly that much, so it's gone up a lot even since I bought it. So this is a great book to have. Fantastic Four, number 48 from 1966. So number 3 on the list, we're getting down to the final 3, is Amazing Spider-Man number 20, the first appearance of the Scorpion. Now this is one of those books that is getting hot mainly because of the multiverse and Spider-Man No Way Home. And there is a lot of talk about that Spider-Man movie bringing in a lot of the key villains in the Spider-Man series. So we got Amazing Spider-Man number 20, first appearance of the Scorpion. And you can look at the prices on this. There hasn't been a recent sale of a 9.8, so it's around $46,000. You can tell, as I said, you're looking for that 3 to 4 times range between a 9.6 and a 9.8. So, you know, you can see that 9.8, there's really got a lot of room to grow. It's probably a fair market would, in my opinion, would be around 60,000, 60, maybe 70,000, even up to 100,000. I'd put it between 60 and 100,000 for that 9.8, just because usually you see that bigger price differential between a 9.8 and a 9.6. But even a 9.6 hasn't sold recently. There hasn't been a sale since November of 2018. So these ones, you know, very, you know, less common and not many sales around it. People basically are holding on to these books. So we see that there's 7 9.8s on the census. And if we look at the total census, we see that it's a lower, one of the more rare books. It has 2,800 on the census. So let's take a look at what an entry-level book would cost you. So entry-level, where it's just barely a comic, we got around $350, and sort of a low to mid-grade, you're looking at around $500 to $600. So it's one of those books that's a little bit more affordable on this list, and there's not as much opportunity to buy this. There's just not the sales volume that some, like the Fantastic Four number 48, for example, had, just because that is a much hotter book and it's just one of those ones you see a lot of sales for. This one is a much more rare and there's just less volume of sales. So you'll notice a lot of things haven't sold for almost a year. So it's been that long since this book has been really selling. But there are some recent sales in a 4.0. We got a $750 for a 4.0 of this book. So it's definitely one that does have some sales history, and you can say, hey, look, this is a good book, especially with that Spider-Man movie coming. So that's Amazing Spider-Man number 20, first appearance of the Scorpion from 1965. And that's number 3 on our list. Number 2 on our list is another Amazing Spider-Man, another big Silver Age key, Amazing Spider-Man number 50. Now this book has really heated up recently because there are rumors already about a casting call for Kingpin, and Kingpin makes his first appearance in this book. So Amazing Spider-Man number 50, first appearance of the Kingpin from 1967. And you can see that this one is a pretty pricey book. It's $155,000 in a 9.8, and that's probably pretty reasonable. That's a reasonable price. I see the price differential being pretty much what I would expect. So a 9.6 sold for 41,000. And then we got the lower grades. Let's look at the lower grades because I always like looking at books that I can afford. We got a 1.0 that sold for $400 in May of 20,000, and March of 20,000 a 1.5 sold. So probably there's room for this one to go up, and probably all the subsequent ones will also go up. If you look at the more recent sales, which are from July, a 3.5 will cost you around $800. So you can expect to pay anywhere from $400 to $1,000 to get a sort of entry-level book of Amazing Spider-Man number 50. Now this book has about 5,250 on the census, so it's a fairly common book. And it is one that is a kind of major key with the Kingpin being his first appearance. It is not his first cover appearance though, and that happens in a later issue of Amazing Spider-Man. And that might be the better key one to go for, just because you want to have that first cover appearance. But this is definitely one that has room to grow, especially because if there's another Into the Spider-Verse or another Spider-Man movie, or there's casting calls, there's so many things going around Kingpin right now that this could be a book that is poised to move up even further. And that's why it is number 2 on the list. So there's a lot of heat around this book. Okay, so the last on our list is probably, this is the most obvious one that probably everyone would have guessed. This is Avengers number 8, the first appearance of Kang the Conqueror. And it actually annoys me that this is on the Silver Age list in a way, because every list that you see, if you watch Comic Toms or any of these other channels, they always talk about this book. This book has been hot for a long time now, and especially with the recent Loki series, where this book really heated up because Loki, at the end of Loki, we saw He Who Remains, actually, not Kang the Conqueror, but He Who Remains, and they basically made it pretty obvious that Kang is coming. So this book definitely heated up with all those announcements. So we look at Avengers number 8. It is the first appearance of Kang the Conqueror, and a 9.8 will cost you around $74,000. You'll notice that there hasn't been a recent sale of this book, and I would expect that if this book came up for auction right now, you would expect it to be around that $100,000 mark, because the last sale was in November of 2015. So, and there's not that many of these on the census. There's only 4 of these on the census, so it's a bit more rare than some of the other books on this list, and it is in a good position to grow up. So you can see that the 9.6 would cost around $25,000, 9.4 around $5,700. And let's look at some of the more entry-level grade ones. So a 1.0 costs around $280. I expect that you could probably get it in that. I think this book has some room to go down, believe it or not. Even with all the hype with people saying stuff, now that the Loki show is done, I expect this to maybe kind of cool off a little bit, just as other things are happening. So this book might be, in a little while, go down a little bit. I don't expect it to drop to like half price or anything like that. It's never going to be a cheap key again, but it is one that I do believe has some room to go down, because there's just been too much hype, and there's already a lot of spec built into this book. So an entry level one will cost you around $280 to just under that $1,000 mark. You can get a nice 5.0 or 4.5. So this book has room to go up in the future, I believe, once you get more announcements of Doctor Strange in the in the Multiverse of Madness, and maybe the second season of Loki. There is room for this book to definitely go up, because Kang is going to be a major bad guy in the Loki series and in the MCU. So definitely expect this book to be one that will go up in the future. But right now, I think within the next month or so, you might see this dip a little bit, just as we move away from that Loki series and people get interested in other specs. So be patient with this one a little bit, but you might want to pick it up before there's any other major news around Kang. So with all that said, this has been my top 10 list of Silver Age comics. I'm curious what people will think about this list. This is different than maybe what you see on other channels where they focus on pretty much all the modern stuff. I kind of wanted to bring some more of that older age books to people's attention and show you some of the stuff that people are speccing on and potentially that are hot books from those earlier ages. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me your comments below. And how many did you have on this list? I had all 10 personally, so I felt good about that. So please put the comments below how many you had on the list and what you would spec on from this list. Another thing is, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, and check me out on Instagram. I post a lot of really cool things there as well. I will link that in the description. Thanks again for watching. Bye.